greetings to Shri Sriram Venkatakrishnan ji. Thank you so much for joining us on Indica platform. And we would like to speak about the new course that you're going to offer on Panchatantra, the code for Dharmic Success. And you're a management guru yourself, and you also are a great storyteller. So we welcome you for this podcast, and we would like to know about the course and what students can expect from it, and your previous experience in using the Panchatantra as a framework for leadership training and lessons. So the Panchatantra, itself has been was a text for to train three princes on skills of leadership and in management in those days, 2000 years ago. So you have adapted it to a modern setting. Could you tell us about, not many people, I guess, know that it's not just a book about fables and animal stories, but was actually meant as a kind of a training treatise, not in the same way as the Arthashastra, but in a probably a more storytelling manner. Could you tell us about that background, Sheila?
Yeah. So before I get started on that, right? So I want to narrate three incidents which recently happened, right? One is, one person was reporting under me, right? He is an Indian. So I was mentoring him. So I had to take some examples from Panchatantra and all that. Then I asked him, do you know Panchatantra? Do you know what is Panchatantra, right? He drew a blank, right? Absolutely nothing from him. He's an Indian. He definitely is part of our culture, but still absolutely zero awareness. Again, fast forward, as part of an onboarding program very recently. So we have a team of 30 people in the onboarding program. Again, I was part of the people attending the teams because I was a leader. They asked me to address the crowd. And one girl asked me, it's a very competitive world. Let's say for a particular role, 10,000 people apply, but only 30 get selected, right? So how do these 30 manage to get selected? Again, I had to quote some of my lessons from Panchatantra. And then I told her this and I asked the crowd, how many of you know what Panchatantra is, right? Only two hands went up. And that too, they were talking about animal stories and all that, right? From Amar Chitra Katha. Another thing recently is I was in a mall, I was browsing through the bookstore, and I saw this book of 365 stories from Panchatantra. Unfortunately, Panchatantra doesn't have 365 stories. So, any animal story with a moral, they seem to think that it is same as Panchatantra. So obviously Panchatantra is not that, right? It was designed, I would say, I want to use the word designed because it has an author who's thought well about teaching princes to become prudent kings, right? That is where it started. So there is a king and he had three princes who were very dumb and he wanted to figure out a way to make them wise. So he called Vishnu Sharma and then he took these princes and then he delivered this set of 70 stories in 1,000 plus slokas. And again, I want to differentiate this between other types of management courses, right? So you take Bhagavad Gita or Mahabharata. Sometimes what happens, Bhagavad Gita is a moksha literature, right? So we take that, and then there are some aspects of work and karma yoga and all that, which is taken and interpreted for the current life. It could be psychologically relevant, but Panchatantra is not like that. It is designed with leadership management and running organizations, running countries as well. So that is where, that is why it was designed in the first place. So this course, you will see all of that. And we will cover, again, Panchatantra has 5 tantras. So we will cover one of the tantras completely in this 26 lessons which we have devised. Yeah.
So could you tell us about the tantra that you're going to focus on and what aspect of leadership that it will handle?
Cool. So let's take a step back. Let's just understand Panchatantra. Again, one of the person I spoke to, he said Panchatantra means something to do with 5, right? Pancha is 5. So yes, so Panchatantra is 5 tantras. And tantra, again, you can call it a strategy, you can call it tactics or a mechanism, right, to do something, right? And this comes from Niti Shastra literature, right, which is a subset of Arthashastra. So Arthashastra is all about money and running empires and whatnot. And Niti Shastra will help you to be safe and sound and be successful in the worldly life. We are not talking about moksha literature here. We are talking about the day-to-day affairs of people and how to be successful. That is what Panchatantra is about. It has 5 tantras totally. That is why it is called Panchatantra. So that is why it is limited, right? Any animal story is not Panchatantra. So we start with Mitra Veda, which is how do you, again, the story is about breaking friendships or breaking alliances, but it typically deals with all of your internal conflicts within your team as a leader or maybe as an organization, right? And again, I'll summarize everything with how it matters to today's audience as well. And second is Mitra Labha, which is how do you form alliances, right alliances. And third is Kakulo, which is about strategy. How do you handle competition? So once you manage your internal teams well, and then you have your alliances and you have a sound strategy, then you're going to start getting certain things, right? That is where Labdha Pranasha comes in, where how do you protect what you have gained with all this? And then finally, you might lose everything if you take some actions which are not well thought of, right? That is where the Aparikshita Karakam comes in, which is experimented or thoughtful acts, right? So that is what the 5 tantras are. So in this course we will cover the Mitra Veda part, and which is almost like 40% of the whole text. And I don't think we can meaningfully cover Panchatantra in a 10-week course, everything. Vishnu Sharma took 6 months. So, so 10 weeks we're going to cover Mitra Veda, which is very relevant to today's corporate life. So again, I'll give you 3 examples, right? So that the audience also will know what to expect, right? First is, see, when we attend leadership training programs, they teach us something called as a skill will matrix, right? So if you put your people reportees into 2 buckets or 4 buckets. People who have low skill and low will. People who have high skill and high will. So you have a 2 by 2 or 4 different types of people come in, right? And typically we are instructed to say that when a person has high skill and high will, you promote that person, right? When a person is low skill and low will, you actually remove them. And in between, depending on whether you have low skill or this one, you either mentor them or you guide them depending on where they lie in the quadrant. Go flashback, right? 2,500 years ago, there is a story where the jackal who's ousted, who is not in power, he's trying to get back into the scheme of things within the forest empire, right? And the jackal, first question the jackal asked the king, the lioness, I am both skilled and I have the will as well, right? I'm both committed and competent. Why have you put me outside? Why aren't you respecting me? Right? That is the first question it asks. So to give you, to summarize, right? So this type of thinking, this type of management framework, Panchatantra already has been thinking, say 2,500 years ago. And one more thing, right? Why people leave leaders? Okay. There's just one sloka. It says, when equals are treated unequally, when unequals are treated equally, when you're not given a job which is up to your potential. This HR manual written to 2,500 years ago, right? And third example is project management, right? So how do you start and run something? So it talks about Arambhopaya, which is how do you start something? You have to figure out a way to start it. Then you get the resources. Then you give time and place, which is nothing but planning. Then you do risk mitigation. And then you think about how do you achieve your objective. Simple, right? All of this is just one slokas, right? Imagine doing this at 1,000+ slokas. See, I've been through my management education myself, right? I'm a IIM alumnus. So I took a course at IMA, which is called Leadership, Vision, Meaning and Reality, which teaches management and leadership from literature, right? Unfortunately, it didn't cover Panchatantra, but a lot of principles were covered from literature. I mean, if you take Panchatantra, it is almost a guidebook for leadership and management given verbatim, right? No interpretation. And I'm not trying to interpret sloka in a different way. It is given right there, verbatim. What are the lessons?
Yeah. So if like these lessons were meant for 2000 years ago, but the world today, the corporate, cutthroat, unethical, almost commercial world that we inhabit today. Does it require an element of going against our swabhava sometimes, and our what principles we hold dear? Does it also factor in that aspect of a little cunningness which we see in these stories sometimes?
Absolutely right. Anybody who has gone through Panchatantra will see that narrative of cunningness which cuts across. In fact, the first tantra talks about a cunning jackal
Mhm.
is successful in breaking the friendship between a lion and a bull, right? And typically, people tend to think that these are moral stories for children. Okay, they are, first of all, they are not for children, and they are not moral, and they are not just stories, right? And so, if you see jackal, right, the jackal is cunning and backbiting and evil. Panchatantra clearly states that in very uncertain terms, and it is successful. It becomes the prime minister. It becomes becomes very successful, right? In the first tantra. So the point being that, and sometimes, right, in Panchatantra stories, you see the rabbit kill the lion using deceit, right? The crow defeating the cobra using strategy, right? See, that is the reality of it, right? We'll come to Swabhava and Swadharma and all that, right? We'll spark that, right? But the reality of the corporate game, the reality of the commercial world is such that all of these things exist, right? And we, again, that's where the Western versus Eastern thought is very clear, right? See, Western thought says freedom, equality, fairness, and people fight against it to make it. Again, still we are fighting, right? We have not reached that stage. This fight is still on, right? But our traditions or our culture is more like accept what is there. It is part of nature, right? One of the key aspects of the Panchatantra's first tantra is about natural enmity, right? It talks about how uh, lions and bulls are natural enemies, right? So you cannot. That's the nature. That's the reality of nature, right? And politics is everywhere, right? Recently, I was serving for a religious organization. I was serving the food and all that. So you won't believe there is politics between second floor and third floor. Who would get better sambar? Okay. So wherever there are people organized in a certain way, there would be politics. Again, having said that, it is up to you whether you want to play that to be successful or not. And it is also about, let's come back to the Swadharma part, right? Let's say I am a salesperson, okay, and you are an R&D person, right? Salesperson is supposed to do certain things. He's supposed to be aggressive, supposed to win deals, right? And if that person doesn't win deal, he is not doing justice for that role. There's something called as roles dharma, which is always there. An R&D person cannot do sales, right? If an R&D person goes and becomes a salesperson, either he has to change or he has to change the role. Normally speaking, it's very tough to change the role, right? So you have to change, or you have to play a role which is very much aligned to your own dharma, which is dharma, right? So an R&D person, he has the research bent of mind. He has to be part of an R&D team. So that is very clear. In fact, the first tantra also, the lion becomes tame, right? And that is where things start becoming. The forest goes for a toss, and somebody has to come in and solve the problem there, right? So that is always there. But the commercial world, whether we admit it or not, it has the cutthroat competition, and you have to survive, right? I give two examples. One is Mudra Rakshasa, which is a play, right? Sanskrit play about Chanakya. So where he tries to bring Nanda's prime minister as the prime minister of Chandragupta, right? Using deceitful means, right? If you take a step back, why is ends and means, right? That's the question here. Is the means okay for any end? The end here Chanakya is talking about is to ensure that get a good person to this kingdom so that the kingdom survives, right? So that there is a larger good which is happening, right? It's not a selfish motive. So that works, right? Same way, if you take Lincoln from a Western world, right? He abolished slavery. Abolishing slavery is brilliant, right? But he had to go through all sorts of ethical dilemmas before he could accomplish that, right? So if you have your just cause, if you have a larger purpose which has to be achieved, for you to achieve it, if you go down a very straight path, you are not going to realize that this one you will fail, right? Or you will get lost in the process. Again, to be honest, in today's world, nobody can say I'm apolitical, right? I don't want to play this game, right? You cannot survive, and that is the nature of reality and nature of the current corporate world, which Panchatantra clearly, even though it is 2,500 years old, kind of exposes the underbelly of how these large corporate operate. At the same time, what is dharma, what is not dharma, when should you act? Apada dharma is there is swadharma, there is dharma for your role. It's a delicate balance of all this, where you cannot cross that line. It's a very thin line, which we will cover extensively in the course as well as we go, right? We will have dharmic puzzles where people decide this way or that way and think through the consequences, right? Yeah. So that's how the course is structured.
Yeah. See, last week I attended a Harikatha where she was talking about the dasas of Karnataka, and she said although they were composers of Bhakti Sangeetam, they were also occupying very important political roles in the empires of the day. For instance, you had them, as advisors in Kalinga or of the Vijayanagar Empire. Their spiritual bent of mind was predominant and they were remembered for it. But they were also political advisors, economic advisors, strategic masters. So one doesn't have to necessarily, do we have to, now choose? You said this is not a moksha shastra. So do we have to actually, choose between one and the other, or is it possible to do both?
See, our Hindu tradition is always been about four Purusharthas, right? They didn't say choose one among the other. Right? So all four are equally important. Three are important for this world here and now and what we want to do. One is okay. It is like a very long-term vision. I would want to put it that way, right? So, see, definitely, I don't think there is a either or choice. See, for example, even Matadhipatis today, who is supposed to their day job is completely spiritual, but at the same time they are managing large organization, right? That's why I gave you the spiritual
Yeah,
example, right? There is even politics, even within spiritual organization. Whenever
agree.
people come together, they have to be managed in a certain way, right? You have to be aware of certain wherever there are resources, shortage of resources, and you have demand from multiple. It need not be very material minded also, right? It can be, for example, let's say two NGOs, right, who are striving. Say one is looking at education, other is looking at abolishing poverty. Both are very good causes, right? But if there is limited resources, there will be a time when one of them has to take precedence over the other. That is where the concept of all this politics and how do you operate in this world comes in. So we cannot leave one after the other. I would think that if you have that spiritual bent of mind, your cause becomes justified, right? So you are not doing that for selfish reasons, right? So you're doing it for a larger purpose. Maybe it's your organization, maybe it's your society, maybe it's your community. Uh, so that justifies what you want to do. Again, it goes against very essence of Western thought, right? Means and ends. Any means cannot go with any ends. But unfortunately, we have to succeed also, right? Otherwise, just like Krishna did in Mahabharata, if you don't do that, Adharma will take over. And so you cannot. It is like in B school terms we say, right? Tactics and strategy, right? You can lose a battle to win a war, right? So what matters is whether you win a war, right? And that requires you to take certain positions at certain points in time, which is the worldly wisdom also, right? That is why the rabbit can kill a lion, right? Otherwise, we'll say rabbit, you don't do anything against it. We accept it because lion is supposed to be an oppressor. We are okay with it, right? But if you think back, it is actually deceit, right? And we are okay if the oppressed is using the deceit tactics because there is a power imbalance, right? So That's what it teaches Panchatantra also. When there is a power imbalance, you cannot go and fight a rightful war, right? It cannot happen. So you need to find mechanism. And reality is not everybody is of equal power, right? A lion and a lion fighting, I can follow the proper Yuddha Dharma, right? But it's a lion and a rabbit. There is not even a question of who's going to win the war if it's an outright war, right? So yeah,
Sure.
so that is, it can be balanced. I don't think there is choosing either or here.
Mm. So, you say this is not like other Indian sacred texts in terms of it's a direct management kind of text. So, what is the role of these? Like in Tirukkural, you have the two-liner aphorisms, moral preaching. So, but the way that is the use of the language, the use of the structure of the verses are, themselves lend themselves to a very beautiful rendition of the lesson. So, is this the same, the use of Sanskritam and the way the lessons are encapsulated within these lines? So these shlokas. So what is the beauty of these thousand shlokas? Aesthetically, what can we get out?
A couple of things there. Good question, actually, right?
Mm.
So, same as Tirukkural. So, these slokas are also either two lines, or sometimes like Naladiyar, it is four, four lines as well. And it uses, of course, the richness of the language is fantastic, but it is still uh, digestible for younger audience, right? So, it is in simple Sanskrit, but very powerful. And the second thing is it uses lot of metaphors. Okay. So one beauty I found, right, personally is you will be able to remember this,
Mm.
even though it is in, see, normally when we in our schools, right, when we are told to mug up those slokas and all, it will be very difficult to even remember what it is saying. But here it uses excellent metaphors, right? For example, choosing your battles, right? How an elephant goes and fights against a mountain, it comes back with broken tusks, right?
Mhm.
So, see, I'm able to remember, right, the
Mm.
sloka. So that is the beauty of this. Again, it is in both verse and prose form.
Mm.
Some part of it, I think, almost 50-50, I would say. 50% is slokas, 50% is in the prose form, right? That is how it is, and it comes with a lot of metaphors. Beautiful usage of words also, which has
Mm.
two meanings, right? For example, sneha is oil, and it is also friendship, right? And it compares your own sevakas to hair, right? Even if you don't
Mm.
apply sneha, it becomes unruly, right? Same way,
Mm.
your own people also, if you don't have friendship with them or you're not friendly with them, then they also become unruly.
Mm. How
So
lovely. Yeah.
it's good. Okay, so again, literally, it's good, but it is not so complex literature. It is still simple, but definitely rememberable because it's in a story form and a lot of metaphors are used. I think I enjoyed reading it, at
Yeah.
least. Yeah.
So, as a preparation for the course, Shriramji, what would you recommend as as a translation, or do you think that people should, if suppose they are not exposed to take having read the text in the original, is there any translation or some that you would
I
recommend?
can suggest a few translations, but I don't think there is any preparation required for this program because we will cover all this, right? It's a 10-week program. We will cover it at length. And okay, that's a good segue into how we structured this course also. See, the course has a running story of a person called Siddharth. Okay. He is starting out as a fresher from college and he becomes the CEO of a organization through 26 lessons, right, which he is going to learn. Along with this, we will go with what Panchatantra has to say, the stories and slokas and whatnot. So each and every episode will have him having a conflict. Then he's solving the conflict with the help of his mentor, who is Vishnu Sharma, through Panchatantra. And we will put the slokas and what their meanings are, etc., along with that. So
Mm.
there is no necessary preparation which is required pre-course. But how I want to do this is once we start putting in the course content, there will be assignments, reflective assignments, right? It's optional, but it will be great if they do it. and it'll be fun. Okay, so I have some AA coaches also for this. So all of this is optional. I can give them things to work on. So if they work, they're going to get most out of this course. Again, it's the course you will get more from discussion, more from effort you put in than as a lecture, right? But we will cover all this. You don't have to pretty much do anything. I can suggest certain books for them. If they are interested, they can obviously go through. M.R. Kale is one. There is one more which I'm reading in original Sanskrit, preferably. Uh, that will be good. Or there, if there are people from Tamil or other mother tongue also, there would be certain books which cover the entire Panchatantra, just not the stories. That will be good. Worst case, even Amar Satra Katha would help.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
So,
So
yeah.
who are the people who you would like to see in the class? You, although you say it's not for children, but it can still, nowadays children are not children anymore. They're already, like leaders in the making. So who are the people you would like to see more in the class?
Okay. See, definitely, I would not consider this a course for children. Okay, we're going to cover really mature concepts, and that requires some preparation work. It's like the farming, right? So you need to prepare the soil for it to receive the right nutrients, right? So it is not targeted children. It would be people who are working in an organization, preferably younger people, maybe Gen Z who are just starting to work, or maybe in middle management. Even senior management can take from this, but I think people who've already reached the levels of the powers that we maybe they have already done something which Panchatantra is saying to be there, right? So people who are struggling, especially people who have gone through an appraisal cycle and seen how the corporate world really treats
Right.
people, and people who think that hard work and talent alone are sufficient uh, will benefit from this course tremendously. And we will also cover certain Western equivalents. It's not just Panchatantra, right? So there is an equivalent. What does Western world is actually coming to terms
Right.
with all of this, right? So they are doing some research on corporate success. How do you, for example, networking?
Mm.
It's a very big part of corporate success. Okay, you're not going to succeed if you don't have good networks, which is nothing but alliances and what the Panchatantra is talking about. So we will cover that aspect also as part of this. So anybody who's working in an organization in the corporate world who is not the senior person, middle and junior levels would be the ideal set of people. Of course, children, I don't know. If there are children in this program, then we'll have to see how to take that because a lot of mature themes we're going to talk, right? They won't understand, right? Unless you're put into that spot, right? The decision making will be very hypothetical, right? Children can be leaders, but they are leaders in a different environment. They are not the leaders in the corporate setting, which is a different set of rules and whatnot.
Thank you so much, Sriramji. I think people should take this very seriously because, just yesterday I was talking to an expert on agriculture, and he has written a book called Krishi Rooted Wisdom. And he was talking about, he was giving the example of the Mahabharata, and he said the numbers that we are talking about, the population of India at that time was almost 4 billion compared to, we think that today India is very populated. But he said the population was so much more, but we were able to feed such a large population, including animals, elephants, and horses and cows. And, we had surplus of food. So the text and the agricultural practices of this time was so sound that it was able to feed so many more people. I think probably, even the same with your course and with the Panchatantra, if we take it seriously, we would not probably have the ethical dilemmas that we are facing today. We are not just learning how to deal with it, we probably would not, have such a toxic working environment in so many places.
Absolutely. I think that is the ultimate motive, right? See, normally people don't appreciate what is nearby, right? Let's say If you ask me, I'm in Chennai, right? How
Mm.
many times have I visited Marina Beach will be very less. But if I ask my other friends, why do you visit Chennai? They say we'll go to Marina Beach and all that, right? So they never appreciate. Same thing. Now there is a big movement happening towards, say, Zoho, and because US is not reciprocating, we're saying we want some Indic and we want some indigenous technology and all that. All of this is just superficial, right? Base of all this is some Indic thought process, right? That I think, see, from Moksha standpoint, we have tremendous literature which is very popular. People understand and people read, and there is a lot of effort going there. But this whole management and leadership literature, I think, unless we do proper Indian there, rest of it is just superfluous, right? So we need to ensure that this knowledge goes and deepens, right? So as you say, this will reduce a lot of toxicity, right? Purely because it opens the eyes of people, right? See, normally what happens is your Western leadership management books you take and read them, they will have all this motherhood statements and say say fairness. They will break down everything into bits and pieces, analyze, and then they will give a solution which will be very straightforward, right? This is not how it works. See, nobody, no, even Western organizations don't work this way, right? It is just that the management and leadership literature, they've ensured that this truth doesn't actually come out. Okay. But ours is very different, right? It's going to open up, for example, jackal. You can take the jackal as an example. You can also take the jackal as something which you should not follow, right? So that is, it exposes a lot of things openly, which happens, right? For me, it took a long time, right? So I'm almost 18 years experience I have. For me, it took about 12 years to realize that this game was on, right? So that is the audience I want to target, right? The people who are starting, who they have to know that talent and hard work alone is not going to get you anywhere within the corporates. I'm not talking about personal life. I'm not talking about other side of your life, right? Work life, definitely, I think it's better that everybody understands the game which is on. And the Panchatantra, I don't think there is any other literature which can expose that game in such a simple and easy way to understand as Panchatantra. So I would also insist that as many people, maybe Indica also, right, through as many reach outs you have, forget my course. I think that's just a cog in the wheel, right? Definitely Panchatantra should be, my objective is to make it part of even management curriculum in India, right? And be part of every corporate learning and development aspects as well, right? Unless we do that, we are just scratching the surface of Indian as an indigenous thinking, right? Just because you use Zoho, you're not going to become Indian. You're going to have to
That's true. You have
also
to
think
change the way we
the
think.
Indian thought process. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sriramji. I'm looking forward to your course and hoping to learn something from it too. Thank you so much for your time and your. It was a very
Sure,
engaging
Aparna. Thank you.
conversation.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Namaste.